My name is Klaus Müller. I'm the European representative of the Holocaust Museum and I'm based in Berlin, Germany. I started to work for the museum a year before its opening in 1993, collecting information and objects relating to the Nazi persecution of homosexuals and consulting on the inclusion of these materials in the museum's permanent exhibition. In the course of time, I brought several collections of gay survivors into our collections. We are going to talk about one of these special collections today in Curators Corner. To give a brief overview, in 1935, the Nuremberg laws depriving Jews of their civil rights were published. And in the same year, the Nazis revised the old sodomy law, paragraph 175, which had been on the books since 1871. The Gestapo and SS wanted to broaden this, in their view, inefficient law. Under the new 1935 version of paragraph 175, already the mere suggestion of male homosexuality, kissing another man, gossip, a letter from a friend could become evidence. In Nazi racist ideology, male homosexuality was no longer just a criminal offense. It was considered a threat to the racial health of Germany and to the main goal of Nazi population politics, raising the birth rate of the German people. Historians estimate that approximately 100,000 men were arrested as homosexuals, half of them were sentenced and sent to prison. An estimated 10 to 15,000 of these men were deported to concentration camps mainly in Germany and Austria, and an estimated 60% were killed. Persecution did not end in 1945. The Nazi paragraph 175 stayed on the books in West Germany until 1969. East Germany returned to the old version. Due to the ongoing persecution in post-war Germany, very few gay survivors ever came forward to tell their story. In 1994, I was in Vienna and heard of a gay survivor, Heinz Heger, who unfortunately had died just 2 months before my visit. Heger's testimony, the man with the pink triangle, for the longest time was the only testimony of a gay survivor. I think it was published in Germany in 1972. His book became the source for generations of gay men and women who wanted to learn more about this dark chapter. I was able to meet with Heger's long-term partner, Wilhelm Kroepfl, from whom I learned about Heger's real name, Josef Kohout, and the story of his testimony. Meeting Josef Kohout's long-term partner, Wilhelm Kroepfl, was very emotional for me because Josef had died just 2 months before, and it was the first time that Wilhelm talked for such a long time about Josef. We were sitting together for 2 hours, having coffee and cake, when Wilhelm suddenly said, "If you're so interested, I think I still have some documents that relate to Josef's time in the camp. Do you want to see them?" I said, "Yes, absolutely, thank you." Wilhelm came back with 2 shoe boxes, and the first thing he unpacked was Josef Kohout's pink triangle badge, the camp marking for alleged homosexual prisoners. I couldn't believe it. We had searched for a pink triangle for years, one that would not only document the Nazi marking system, but also could be reconstructed as part of one individual story. But due to ongoing persecution, gay survivors got rid of their badges as soon as possible. I remember Wilhelm said, "If I would have known that there's still so much stuff in here, I would have thrown some of it away." But honestly, I didn't have yet the strength to go through with it. It took me a while to convince him that all of these documents were important. I said, "Please don't throw anything away. And if you're ready, please donate these materials to our collections. For us, this is a historic documentation." Here you see handwritten letters by his parents, camp documents, handwritten notes by Josef, post-war materials. It is a unique collection. This is a picture of Josef Kohout, probably taken in the late 1940s. Josef was 24 when he was arrested in March 1939. His Christmas card to his male lover had been intercepted. He was sentenced to several months of prison under paragraph 175. After completing his sentence, he was taken into so-called protective custody and deported to the Sachsenhausen concentration camp. In May 1940, Josef Kohout was transferred to the Flossenbürg concentration camp, of which you see a picture here. In the camp hierarchy, the men with the pink triangle had to suffer the same inhuman conditions as all other prisoners. Brutal violence by the guards, hunger, disease, slave labor. Josef was incarcerated in Flossenbürg for 5 years. During a death march from Flossenbürg to Dachau in April 1945, he was finally liberated by a front unit of the US Army. We learn from the collection that his parents inquire about their son in the camp very early on. Here you see the response from the camp commandant in Flossenbürg, dated July 1940, informing his parents that their son is well. Letters like these might have helped Josef to survive. The letter you see here is very unusual and illuminates how brave Josef's parents were and how much they must have missed him. Dated December 28, 1943, they request permission to visit their son in the camp. In those times, the request alone was highly dangerous. The isolation of inmates was part of the camp system. Nobody was allowed to visit family members. They did not sign, as was custom then, with Heil Hitler, but just with their names. We are looking at a frail, narrow piece of cloth, 2 inches long and not more than an inch wide, with the numbers 1896 on the right, Josef Kohout's badge number, and a pink triangle on the left. In the background, you see a chart of prisoner markings. The Nazis developed 2 different categories of prisoners, including the pink triangle for alleged homosexuals. It's interesting, as we have no other pink triangles for comparison, we don't really know how pink the prisoner badge for homosexuals looked alike, how that color changed in time through washing, exposure, or simply aging, what chemical pigments were used, or if they differed from camp to camp. In Kohout's testimony, an SS officer is quoted as describing Kohout's larger badge as pale red. Kohout's badge is the only prisoner badge worn by a homosexual prisoner we can identify through his testimony, the preserved camp and post-war documents, and the prisoner registration from Flossenbürg, where the entry on Josef Kohout lists him as being taken into protective custody under paragraph 175. You are looking at a unique sheet of paper, a diary if you want, written during a death march. On April 20th, 1945, the Nazi guards began the forced evacuation of more than 20,000 camp inmates of Flossenbürg due to the advancing war front. Josef managed to make 1-line notes per day. Many prisoners died on such death marches, but Josef was lucky. He and a smaller group of fellow inmates were liberated by a front unit of the US Army's 19th Infantry Division, 70 kilometers south of Flossenbürg. The entry on that Wednesday, April 25th, 1945, simply said, Amerikaner gekommen, Americans came. When we document the Nazi persecution of homosexuals, mostly we only have perpetrator records. Records from the Gestapo, the police, or the camp administration. We have very few testimonies of gay survivors themselves, very few objects. The importance of this collection is that it allows us to illustrate the story of one gay survivor and to tell his story. When I was sitting with Wilhelm Kroepfl in Vienna and he was opening the shoebox and out of this came this amazing collection, I was also wondering later how many collections we might have missed. People throw things away. They might not realize the importance of such records. While I'm not very hopeful that we might be able to find many more materials, I would like to take this opportunity to emphasize their importance. If you think you have anything that could relate to this story, a document, a photo, a textile brought home by an American liberator, please do not throw it away. Believe us that this object might allow us to tell a story that has never been told before.